Good evening to you. I'm Evan Watson in for Pat Doris, and welcome to This Story. We begin tonight with a look at the homeless crisis and the potential for unity, at least in policy. One county commissioner says Multnomah County should follow Portland's lead. It's our big story tonight. There could be a new ban on homeless camping coming to Multnomah County. This week, talks of a new ordinance are being floated around county commissioners. Blair Best has the story.
The camping bans right now are city ordinances, including one in Portland and Gresham. This would be a county-wide ban. The idea is to create a uniform response to homelessness, regardless of where you are in Multnomah County.
There are many side effects to homelessness in Multnomah County. Here's one. Early Wednesday, ODOT crews repair a cut fence in southwest Portland by a well-known spot for tents.
And we have a huge issue of livability and safety, cleanliness in our neighborhoods because of unsanctioned camping.
This week, County Commissioner Julia Brim Edwards proposed a county-wide ban on homeless camping. Location of the camp would determine whether enforcement falls under city police or the sheriff's office.
Right now, the county doesn't have any rules on the books. So if you're an unincorporated Multnomah County, or you're, for example, on Multnomah County property on the bridgehead of the Hawthorne Bridge, there aren't any restrictions.
Currently, cities within Multnomah County, like Portland and Gresham, already have restrictions around homeless camping. It's not allowed when shelter is available. But due to a lack of shelter, enforcement is sporadic. This week, Mayor Ted Wheeler's office and the City of Gresham offered to partner with the county in their plan.
I think we're going to want to look at what's been get some data from both Portland and Gresham.
Since Portland's ban started in July, 9,000 campsites have been assessed. 1,400 have been removed. People at 20 of them were referred to police. Out of those 20 sites, 3 people accepted the offer of shelter, and 1 person was arrested.
We know that we don't yet have enough for everybody who is unsheltered. So from my perspective, that has to be, a top priority.
Well, then it's just a catch-22. What are you going to do?
Another side to homelessness Richard knows well.
Where else are you going to go?
Since Portland's ban, he hides his tent. His latest spot, behind bushes in this field along the interstate.
Why not focus on helping people get into places instead of banning it? It's really hard for people, man. I feel bad for a lot of people.
We're told enforcing the countywide ban will start with the most problematic campsites. Commissioner Brim Edwards stressed punishing people for camping should be the last resort. The focus instead should be opening more shelter. Now, a formal draft of the new countywide camping ban will be presented to county commissioners next month, and it could go into effect by the end of the year. Blair Best, KGW News.
Now we want to bring you the conclusion to a story we've been following since it started. You may remember in March, a federal judge in Medford sided with a church in Brookings on the southern Oregon coast over its long-running dispute with the city. It started all the way back in 2020 when the city tried to limit the number of days St. Timothy's Episcopal Church could feed the homeless. Neighbors complained about them gathering in their residential neighborhood near the church, and the city changed its zoning laws so the church could only feed people 2 days a week. So after that, the church sued, arguing that feeding people in need is how they exercise their religion. The United States Justice Department even got involved, issuing a statement of interest on behalf of the church, asking the judge to rule in St. Timothy's favor, which is exactly what the judge did. In May, the church filed a motion for attorney fees from the city, and the two sides have been in negotiations since. Until last week, when the Brookings City Council voted to pay more than $400,000 in legal fees for the church. At the recommendation of City Attorney Lori Cooper, all 4 city council members and the mayor voted to pay $375,000 to Stoll Rives, a Portland-based law office, and $43,000 to the Oregon Justice Resource Center. At the meeting approving the settlement, council members Martin and Malmberg voiced their opinions.
I think the winners in this lawsuit obviously are the law firm that's going to collect these attorney fees. The losers are the people in this neighborhood that have had to deal with this, even though I disagree with the judge's decision. But I think this this settlement lessens somewhat the impact on the city taxpayers that unfortunately have to suffer for the reasons that were just stated.
It's all kind of stemmed from not being a good neighbor, in my opinion, and not working with your community to find a path forward and address the needs while minimizing the impacts. My hope is that moving forward, there's more effort to work with the community, recognize that what we do has an impact on those around us, and strive to be a good neighbor.
As part of the settlement, the city has also agreed to repeal its ordinance restricting when the church can feed people and solve any remaining abatement issues with that church. The church agreed to withdraw an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals. We reached out to the City of Brookings for comment, but have yet to receive anything back. We also reached out to Father Bernie Lindley of St. Timothy's Episcopal Church. He says the church is ready to put this all in the rearview mirror.
We're glad that it's finally over. So we did reach a settlement, and it was not all of our legal expenses, but it was enough that we were happy to get this behind us. And, you know, we're glad that we don't have this distraction any longer as we try to serve all the people in our community, especially the ones who are on the margins, the ones who are disenfranchised. Well, we wish this whole thing would have never happened. Our intention at the beginning of this, before the ordinance was put in place by the city, was to have a conversation, to sit down around a table and figure out how we could all get along and make compromises as appropriate. And, you know, instead of having a conversation, we had to go through this whole legal process. But now that it's over, we hope that we will be able to sit down at a table and figure out how we can be of better service to our community at large.
Father Lindley mentioned the money the city is paying doesn't cover their full legal expenses, so we asked him how they intend to cover the remaining fees, and he told us the law firm they worked with has agreed to write off the remaining expenses as pro bono, meaning the church won't have to pay. Every September, thousands of people participate in a long-standing tradition in Portland, watching the Swifts at Chapman Elementary School in Northwest. It's a pretty spectacular sight, usually. Thousands of birds fill the air, and at sundown they funnel into the chimney to roost for the night. Portland is along their migration path, and the birds have been coming to the Chapman chimney since at least the 1980s. But they haven't been returning as frequently this year, at least not nearly in the numbers we usually see. This is typically the peak time of the month for the birds. Usually thousands of them go into the chimney each night, but lately there have been less than 100, sometimes none at all. The Bird Alliance of Oregon, which used to be called the Portland Audubon, has been tracking the swifts at Chapman since 2009, and they count them every night of September.
Yeah, the numbers are quite a bit lower this year. In most years, we get, an average of 5,000 birds a night throughout September, and in the peak of the middle of September, we'll often have a lot more than that. But this year, the numbers started out, in the low thousands, which was fine, and then trickled down into the hundreds, and now most recently, in the past couple of days, we haven't had any birds at Chapman.
So we graphed it. This graph shows the average number of birds counted each night throughout the month from 2009 to 2022. As you can see, usually this week there are anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 swifts a night. This year, the numbers are nowhere close. They had a peak of about 5,000 birds at the beginning of September, and it's been on the decline since then. September 12th, they only counted 670 birds. The average for that date is more than 6,000. September 15th, not even 100 birds, when there are normally close to 7,000. Last year, the Bird Alliance counted a peak of more than 11,000 swifts at Chapman.
In the 10, 11 years I've been with Bird Alliance of Oregon, I have not seen them go this low. I mean, we've had a couple nights where there have been no birds there at all. We don't know. We want to keep monitoring Chapman during the rest of September like we normally do every year, because we just don't know what to expect. They could reappear in a night tonight. Who knows? We don't really know.
So the big question, how did thousands of birds just disappear? The Bird Alliance says they're not entirely sure. There could be a lot of possibilities, anything from predators to the weather.
We're not sure. You know, we really need to look at the data more closely. We do know that every year there are Cooper's hawks and peregrine falcons sometimes that show up near the chimney. They can definitely influence the behavior of the bird. So there could be something going on with numbers of predators or presence of predators there. I want to say again, it's totally speculative. We don't know for sure, but we are collecting that data. We collect data on the number of swifts. We collect data on the activity of raptors every night. So we'll have to look at that information and see if we can see any correlations or patterns from that.
They say it's also possible that the birds just found somewhere they like better this year.
We've been monitoring the Chapman chimney for 15 years, and we typically get a lot more birds, and so it is very unusual. But in the larger scheme of things, these birds are known to sometimes forego using a chimney that they've used historically. So we're trying to figure out right now what is going on. Like, we don't know for sure. Like I said, it is natural that sometimes they will just, abandon the use of a chimney and use other ones. So we do know that there are some other chimneys in the Portland metro area that they're using in higher numbers than in previous years. So we are speculating right now that some of the birds that normally would be going into Chapman are going into these alternative chimneys in other parts of the town. And so that's part of what we're learning right now. We do need to look at our data and more intensely in the next couple of weeks and try to see if there's any other patterns.
By the way, if you're wondering how they're able to count so many birds, it's not an exact science, but they do well enough to get a good estimate.
When you have a large number of animals to count, you often count them in blocks of 10 or 100, and that's what we do at Chapman. So we stand up on top of the hill, looking at the chimney, and we have a clicker in our hand to count the birds in blocks of 100 or 10 to 100, depending on the experienced observer. We do train people to do the counts. They have to practice a number of times and compare them to numbers of more experienced observers until we feel like we have a pretty good, pretty good experienced person that can do the count. But there is error there for sure. And the main thing is that over time we use a consistent method so we can see the trend across time.
Now, when we come back, recreational cannabis has been legal in the Northwest for more than a decade now, but it's still strictly banned on the federal level. That may soon change as discussions are underway to reclassify the drug, and that could bring some huge changes.
At some point in the future, cannabis will be sold next to alcohol and tobacco at grocery stores and everywhere else.
The ups and downs of potentially changing the marijuana policy when the story returns. We may be just months away from a significant shift in the way the federal government classifies cannabis. All signs point to the Drug Enforcement Administration, the DEA, relaxing the rules around the drug. Jake Wittenberg from our sister station in Seattle shows us what new federal rules could mean for researchers and business owners.
The DEA is in its final stages of deciding whether to reclassify cannabis, a move that would consider it a less dangerous drug. During the federal comment period, which just wrapped up, a record 43,000 public comment submissions were sent to the DEA about the decision. It's clear this is really hitting a nerve with people. Here in Washington state, it's now been 10 years since recreational marijuana was first sold on store shelves, and it appears we are entering a new era in cannabis. While this would be a new federal rule, many here in Washington state would see big changes, including small business owners, scientists, and consumers.
Two wins. Should we take his pictures?
These days, Ryan Kunkel is spending more time on the floor of his Auburn casino compared to his other business. He says this one is less of a gamble.
Why get into casinos?
A lot of it was predicated on what we knew was coming, some kind of federal change. We didn't realize it was going to come in the form of reclassification.
The reclassification of cannabis. Kunkel was one of the first in Washington state to get into the retail marijuana business. At its peak, his Have a Heart company owned 22 retail licenses in 6 states. But he's now getting out of the business and selling his stores one by one. Today, he's down to just a handful left in the Seattle market.
It's not viable much longer.
Kunkel says he's reading the tea leaves and believes we're witnessing the beginning of the end of small cannabis retail stores. Since 1970, cannabis has been considered by the DEA as a Schedule I drug, the most severe, putting it on par with heroin and meth. But the latest proposal is for the DEA to reclassify cannabis to Schedule III, considering it less of a risk and one step below outright legalization. In Kunkel's eyes, this gives big business the green light to move in.
It's a $60 billion business in the U.S. There's no way that big box retailers are not going to try and go after that.
He points to a similar evolution in the liquor industry. In 2011, Washington voters agreed to end the state monopoly on liquor, putting sales in the hands of private business, and liquor stores disappeared.
At some point in the future, cannabis will be sold next to alcohol and tobacco at grocery stores and everywhere else.
While rescheduling could eventually be banned for small business, it could mean a new frontier in the lab.
During the 70s, that was when there was reefer madness.
Marijuana, the burning weed with its roots in hell.
And this idea that cannabis would make people sort of crazed individuals. We know now that that's not true.
Dr. Susan Ferguson is the director of the Addictions, Drug, and Alcohol Institute at UW. She says current federal rules have researchers hamstrung, and rescheduling cannabis at the federal level will finally give them access to more cannabis varieties. Marijuana is still considered so dangerous, they're required to keep it under strict lock and key. Ferguson says rescheduling would unlock new research and could lead to new non-addictive treatments for pain and other diseases like epilepsy.
Rescheduling to a Schedule III would do what for your research?
So we're trying to understand the patterns of behavior that occur in people. How does that impact the brain? How does that impact behavior? You have a plant with all of these different chemicals, and each variety is slightly different in the chemical makeup. So the next great cure is probably out there, and if we were just studying this one version of it, we won't find that.
By studying the effects of cannabis on the brains of mice, UW researchers hope to find the next great cure.
If we were able to be allowed to have local strains of cannabis, that could be a game changer. It might just help us be able to model the human situation a little bit more closely.
Opponents of cannabis legalization point to addiction and cannabis use disorder among teens. But Dr. Ferguson believes quality cannabis research will open doors.
And so as researchers, I think it's really important to be able to kind of open up the floodgates of research to be able to help inform the public, help inform policymakers, and let those people make their own informed decisions.
Shuffling within the billion-dollar cannabis industry is certain to bring change. Kunkel is one who's betting on it.
Less of a gamble to be in the casino business.
Feels like it. Although this comes with its own swings.
No, you don't want
This is legal.
We do.
So there's a different element when I go to bed at night that I don't have to worry about that I do in cannabis.
It's still not clear when the DEA could reschedule cannabis at the federal level, but it's signaled it will not make any decisions until at least December. Jake Wittenberg, King 5 News.
When we come back, it's the big news of the day. Portland is getting a WNBA team. But it's not the first time the Rose City has supported a professional women's basketball team. We're looking back in the KGW vault at the Portland Fire and their short-lived lifespan that was still a lot of fun while they were here. A major announcement today. Portland is getting a WNBA team. Rumored for a little while now, it is officially official. The league announced the expansion this morning. Professional women's basketball will return to Portland starting in 2026. We don't know this team's name just yet, but we do know the owners. The Batal family and Raj Sports, which owns the Portland Thorns, paid $125 million to bring a WNBA franchise to Portland. Lisa Batal said in a statement, "This is huge for Portland. Portland is this incredibly diverse, enthusiastic community. We saw this passion firsthand when we started looking into the Portland Thorns, and this is Basketball City. So we're very excited about the future." The team will play in the Moda Center, and if all of this is sounding a bit familiar to you, well, maybe it should. So we took a trip to the vault. Portland had a WNBA team, the Portland Fire, which played at the Rose Garden from 2000 to 2002. The Fire averaged more than 8,000 fans at its home games, which was higher than the league average. Jackie Stiles won the Rookie of the Year award in 2001. But in the Fire's 3 seasons in the league, the team failed to post a winning record, finishing best at 16-16 in 2002. The team was owned by Paul Allen, but the Fire fizzled out after just 3 seasons in the league for financial reasons and a lack of new ownership investment. Here's what former Portland Fire player Jenny Moe told us about that moment.
It was a shock, I think, to all of us. We were just like, wait, what? but we have a good fan base. Like, people are coming to our games, and why would you do that? But yeah, it was really weird to come back to nothing.
The new Portland WNBA team will be the league's 15th team, playing in a city that's known to support women's sports. Lots of excitement as we've talked to a lot of people around the city and people who are already getting invested at this point. One more thing, I was looking through our archives for Portland Fire video today and found this one player introduction that's simply too good not to share with you. We're all excited for basketball, but none of us are maybe this excited for basketball. A Fire player runs full speed through the team's mascot spot, letting everyone know she means business. I wish I could tell you who this was or even answer why, but I can't be sure. But if the energy for our new WNBA team is anything like this, I'm sure there's lots of fun ahead. So what do you think about Portland getting a WNBA team? What do you think the team name should be? Is it energizing to you? Are you concerned about longevity based on past history? Let us know what you think on this or any of the stories you saw tonight. Send us an email at thestory@kgw.com, or as always, you can call and leave us a voicemail at 503-226-5090. We love to get your comments and questions and get your opinions on things like that. Looking forward to see what you have to say about the Portland Fire. That is the end of our show tonight. Thank you very much for watching. If you've run through any mascots recently, please be sure to let me know. Until then, be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow.